A man stands trial for a murder he didn't commit. The whole court wants him dead. And his response? He demands a trial by combat, then smiles. That man became the most loved character in the entire series. How did a dwarf, mocked his entire life, win over millions? Tyrion Lannister was born into the richest family in the Seven Kingdoms. But his birth killed his mother. His father never forgave him for that. From day one, Tyrion was treated as an embarrassment. Here's the detail people forget. Despite the hatred, Tyrion became the smartest man in every room he entered. He read constantly. He studied people the way other men studied swordplay. And he learned something most of his family never figured out. In a world full of armies, the sharpest mind in the room usually survives the longest. Let's talk about how he survived. Tyrion didn't fight with swords. He fought with words. During the Battle of Blackwater, he rallied a losing army with one speech. He saved the entire city of King's Landing. And his reward? Cersei stripped his title. His own father refused to acknowledge it ever happened. Think about that for a second. He saves an entire city from being burned alive, and the thanks he gets is silence. But the moment that defines him came later, after his nephew's murder. Tyrion was blamed for a crime he never committed, sentenced to death by his own family. What makes this part so painful is the pattern. Every time Tyrion did something good, his family found a way to punish him for it. Not because he failed. Because he kept proving he was better than they expected, and they couldn't forgive that. Here's the scene fans still quote today. At his trial, Tyrion finally stops defending himself. He stands up. And he says what he's wanted to say his entire life. He admits he wishes he were the monster they think he is. He says he wishes he'd burned their city to the ground. It wasn't a confession. It was 18 years of abuse, finally speaking out loud. That single outburst turned a villain's relative into the show's most quoted hero. And here's why it hit so hard. Up until that moment, Tyrion had spent his whole life being clever, diplomatic, careful with his words. For once, he stopped being careful. He let the anger out raw, in front of the people who'd spent years tearing him down. Viewers didn't just hear a speech. They felt years of pent-up rage finally find a voice. Tyrion didn't win by being the strongest. He won by being the smartest person who never stopped getting hurt and never stopped fighting anyway. That's why when Joffrey died at that wedding, fans didn't just celebrate a death. They celebrated Tyrion finally being free, even for a moment, from a family that destroyed him. It's a strange kind of love an audience gives a character like this. Not because he's perfect, because he's been beaten down again and again, and he keeps standing back up with a joke and a plan. That's harder to fake than heroism, and it's exactly why he became the heart of the entire show. Here's where it gets interesting. When fans were asked to name their favorite character, Tyrion topped the list again and again. Not Jon Snow, not Daenerys, a dwarf who never won a sword fight in his life. Some fans say it's the wit. Every line he delivers feels quotable. Other fans say it's something deeper. They saw themselves in him, underestimated, overlooked, written off before they even got a chance. There's also a popular theory among fans. They believe Tyrion represents the show's real message, that the smartest person in the room rarely wins through force. They win by outlasting everyone who underestimated them. And that trial scene, fans still call it one of the greatest monologues in television history. Clips of it get reposted every year, often with captions like, "This lives in my head rent-free." Even now, fans argue about one thing regarding Tyrion. Was he truly good? Or just the most relatable version of a flawed family? One side points to his choices. He saved a city. He showed mercy when others wouldn't. He treated people with kindness, even when he had every reason not to. The other side points to his flaws, his drinking, his mistakes, the people he hurt along the way, even if he never meant to. Both arguments lead to the same conclusion. Tyrion wasn't loved because he was perfect. He was loved because he was human, in a world full of people pretending to be gods. And maybe that's the real reason his story still resonates. He proved that surviving with your humanity intact is its own kind of victory. And that wedding, it connects both of these characters forever. One as the most hated death in the show, the other as the man everyone wanted to see survive it. If you haven't seen our breakdown on Joffrey's downfall, that's where this story really begins. Subscribe if you want more character breakdowns like this every week. One king made 8 seasons of fans want him dead, not defeated, not arrested, dead, and when he finally died, millions celebrated. What did Joffrey Baratheon do that made an entire planet of viewers cheer for a teenager's murder? Joffrey wasn't born evil. He was born powerful. The son of Queen Cersei, raised in the Red Keep, told from birth he'd rule everything. But there's a detail most casual fans miss. Joffrey wasn't even a real Baratheon. His father wasn't King Robert. That single secret would shape every cruel thing he'd ever do, every cruel thing he'd ever do. Think about it. A boy raised to believe he's destined for the throne. But deep down, his entire claim is a lie. That kind of pressure doesn't create humility. It creates a monster who has to prove himself at any cost. Let's start small. Joffrey had his own cousin's direwolf killed, over a hunting accident that wasn't even her fault. That's the warm-up. Then came the public humiliations. He had Sansa Stark beaten in front of the entire court, made her look at her father's severed head, mocked her grief like it was entertainment. But here's the part that turns stomachs even today. Joffrey used crossbows on prostitutes, not for any reason, just to watch. One moment, one king, endless cruelty, and it didn't stop there. Joffrey loved games where he held all the power. He'd force people to fight for his amusement, then change the rules halfway through, just to see them suffer longer. Even his own guards started to fear him more than they feared enemies on the battlefield. Here's the thing people don't talk about enough. Joffrey wasn't just cruel to strangers. He was cruel to people who couldn't fight back. That's the detail that made fans truly hate him, not the violence itself, the targets he chose. Now here's where it gets dangerous, even for him. Joffrey didn't just torment commoners. He humiliated his uncle Tyrion constantly. He stripped him of titles, mocked his height, called him names in front of the entire small council. What Joffrey never understood was simple. You can humiliate everyone below you, but eventually someone above you stops protecting you. And at his own wedding, surrounded by lords, family, and wine, Joffrey grabbed his throat, choked, turned purple, and collapsed in front of everyone he'd ever tortured. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The same court that bowed to him for years just watched. Cersei screamed for help, but the people around the table, some of them didn't even look surprised. That's how deep the hatred ran. Even his own family had a list of suspects ready before his body hit the floor. The purple wedding wasn't just a death. It was a release valve for an entire audience. Years of cruelty paid back in one gasping public moment. Fans didn't mourn him. They threw watch parties. That's the legacy Joffrey left behind, not as a king. As proof that some characters exist purely to make you feel something and feel relieved when it's over. And the funny thing is, the show knew exactly what it was doing. Every cruel act was a setup. Every humiliation Joffrey dished out was building toward that one dinner table moment. Writers don't create characters this hated by accident. They build them piece by piece so the fall feels earned. But Joffrey's death raised a bigger question. Who actually killed him? The official story blamed one man. The real story is far more complicated, and that story belongs to the most loved character in the entire show. If you want that breakdown, stick around for part 2. Subscribe if you want more Thrones breakdowns like this every week. Here's where the story gets even stranger. The moment Joffrey died on screen, social media didn't go quiet. It exploded. Fans posted celebration memes within minutes. Some compared the scene to a holiday. Others said it was the most satisfying death in television history. But the reactions went deeper than memes. Many viewers admitted something uncomfortable. They felt guilty for how good it felt to watch a teenager choke to death on screen. That's the power of great writing. The show made millions of people root for a death, and then made them question why they wanted it so badly. There's also a theory fans still argue about today. Some believe Joffrey's death wasn't just punishment for his crimes. They believe it was the show's way of testing the audience, asking a simple question. How far can a character push you before you stop seeing them as a person and start seeing them as a problem to be solved? By the time Joffrey hit the floor, most viewers had already answered that question without realizing it. Even now, fans still debate one thing about Joffrey. Was he simply born cruel? Or did the people around him create the monster? One side points to his bloodline, the product of two siblings raised with zero accountability. The other side points to his upbringing. Spoiled, never punished, told constantly that he was untouchable. Both arguments lead to the same uncomfortable conclusion. Nobody around Joffrey ever said no to him. Not his mother, not his guards, not the court. And that's perhaps the real lesson hidden inside his story. Power without consequence doesn't just corrupt people, it removes the need for them to ever change.